Hello everyone, my name is Cale Jones, and today I am going to be talking to you about making measurements. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about making measurements without using conventional measuring tools like a ruler or a tape measure. This video is going to be for people who may not have measuring tools right now. If you don't have a ruler, if you don't have a tape measure, that's okay. There are other ways of measuring things. This video is also for people who are interested in unconventional and alternative ways of doing things. And we could even go as far as developing and making our own systems of measurement as a project or aspect of a practice. So I am today going to be focusing on measuring distance. There are lots of different measurements or types of measurement that describe different things spatially, like say volume. We could also describe weight with measurements. I'm going to focus on distance today. So first I want to look at what systems of measurement are. So I'm getting this information that I'm about to say from the Funk and Wagnall Encyclopedia. This encyclopedia says that all countries enforce the uniform use of measurement standards within their borders. A measurement standard is an object or formula that uniquely defines or represents the size of a unit. So there's a little bit to unpack there. So one thing, right, the first part is that countries enforce systems of measurement within their borders, right? So there's an aspect of the systems of measurement that most of us use that are embedded in the law and also define the borders of a country, say. And then this second part, right? It says that a measurement standard is an object or formula that uniquely defines or represents the size of a unit. So what does that mean? For that, I would like to look at the metric system as an example. So the way that we could think about that, right, is the metric system uses meters, right? So meters is the unit. What is the object or formula that defines or represents the size of that unit? For the metric system, the original unit was a meter, and a meter was defined as 1/10,000,000th of the distance from the equator to the North Pole on a line running through Paris. And this was measured in the late 1790s by French scientists as culture has changed and grown and shifted in different ways. The meter and what defines it has changed. So in 1983, the meter was redefined as the length of a path traveled by light in a vacuum during a time interval of basically 1/300,000,000th of a second, okay? So that's what that second part of the encyclopedia definition is talking about. So what are measurements useful for? That's another question that we can think about together. So they're useful for describing things, right? So if somebody is familiar with the British imperial system of measurement, which is inches, if we're talking about distance, feet, and I want to tell you about my coffee table, and you ask how big it is, I could say that it's 48 inches wide, right? And if we both have an understanding of that system of measurement, the person who I'm talking to can maybe start to picture what that thing looks like or how much space it takes up. It's also really useful for planning things. That's something that I use measuring for all the time. If I'm making a project and I'm thinking through how much material I need and how I'm going to make the best use of that material, I'm using measurement to make those plans. It's also very useful for commerce, right? So once I've planned my project and I'm going to Home Depot to buy my material, say I'm buying 2x4s, I know that 2x4s are sold in 96-inch lengths as a standard, and that those pieces of material are going to be a given price based on that specific measurement. A couple other thoughts before I move on, right? And this is kind of gathered from all the information that I've talked about so far, is that units of measurement are cultural products, like so many other things, like paintings, like books, right? So we can think about systems of measurement or ways of measuring creatively in the same way that we might think about critiquing or making other things. It also has this relationship to cultural identity, right? Unification and difference. So like I talked about before, being able to talk to somebody about the British imperial system of measurement versus the metric system, right? If, somebody like me who was born and raised in the United States is going to have a lot of familiarity with the British imperial system of measurement and less familiarity with the metric system, most likely. And then I also just want to acknowledge kind of the poetic potential of systems of measurement, which is not something that we really think about very often, say with like the meter and its measuring of distance between the equator and the North Pole on the surface of the Earth, right? Is that there's a lot of potential when creating one's own system or one-off way of measuring things to embed meaning in what the unit or units are. And there may be more things to consider too, more things to think about. These are just some initial thoughts.